Okay, we're live. Well, thank you all. Welcome to my first ever webinar. Thanks for letting me test out all this technology on you. If you've been watching any of my latest series of videos, I've been talking a lot about hiring and how to hire sales talent, and that's what we're going to go into today in some detail. So again, I'll keep an eye on the questions if you have questions. So let's get started. Just a real quick, in case you don't know me, I know many of you on the call do, but some of you don't know me. I've been on my own and as a consultant for 4.5 years, but in my corporate life, I spent 12 years at St. Michel Wine Estates, 5 years at Constellation Brands in a sales leadership role. I have personally hired and trained and managed 27 people in my corporate life. And as a recruiter, I've hired 8 people for my clients since striking out on my own. I also have a track record of proven sales success. During my 12 years at St. Michel, I grew the business from 50,000 cases a year. Not me, my team did, from 50,000 cases a year to 650,000. And no way you could do that without really, really great salespeople and lots of them. So I hope today I can impart some of my experience on how to find those people, and we'll go from there. So what you learned today, I already sent this out, so I won't read every point on the slide, but I just really want to make sure that I impart and share with you some of the key tips that have helped me identify, screen for, and hire good sales talent. The only thing I'm not going to cover today, because it really deserves its own webinar, is conducting the actual in-person interview, questions to ask, how to make that go well. That is a real art and science unto itself. That's the only piece we're not going to do. But the rest will hopefully still be very valuable. So hire versus develop, that's my first point. If you saw my video called A Few Words About Motivating Salespeople, I believe that certain things can't be taught, can't be trained. They're innate, like being responsible, being a person of integrity, being a hard worker, wanting an inherent desire to win and perform at a high level. You can't train that into people. You can't motivate people to do that. So you've got to hire it. And so it becomes so critical, understanding how to hire good sales talent. By the way, that's a picture of me in 1986, winning my first sales award, working for Accent Wine and Spirits in Houston. Some of you probably knew me then. I know George did. But in selling, it's all about results. So it's not about activity or excuses or anything else. You need people on the team who can get results and get it consistently. So to achieve that, you've got to have the right people on the team. Now, when I say hire versus develop, I don't mean you don't develop your people, you don't lead by example or coach and train them and mentor them to greatness. There are so many subtleties that take place on the road to becoming a great salesperson and a great leader of people. So I'm not saying that at all. I believe that there's things that you need to do as a sales leader. But when it comes to these things that can't be taught, that's where the hiring process. And by the way, if you want to know what things your salespeople want to be successful, read the Gallup Q12. If you're not sure what that is, I can point you to the resources. Now, I did a video on this, but I want to camp on this for a little bit because this was the big game changer for me. I used to really suck at hiring, and because I didn't know what I was doing, but I got training and I got help. And to me, this is the best thing that I did to improve my skills. And that is stepping back and getting really clear with myself about A, what is required to succeed in a role like this, and B, what are the things that are must-haves for me personally. And I never vary from those 3 things. If I ever do, I pay a high price for it. So I think this is perhaps one of the most valuable things I'm imparting to you today. In my opinion, based on decades of experience, the list on the left is what is required to be successful in a sales role. I don't care what it is you're selling. You've got to be organized. You've got to keep your promises. You've got to have a positive attitude. You've got to be resourceful. You got to just figure stuff out. So I look for those things in the people. My 3 must-haves, if you didn't watch the video, here they are. You got to be a hardworking self-starter who doesn't need to be told what to do. Number 2, you've got to be super organized. I don't believe you can be successful in sales unless you're super, super organized. That's part of keeping your commitments and promises. And then the third thing for me is a commitment to self-improvement. I can't work with people who aren't committed to self-improvement like I am. it's just, as a leader, that's important to me. And so that value has to be shared among the team members. Otherwise, it's probably just not going to be a good fit for us. And never underestimate the importance of fit. So before you can find whether or not someone's a right fit, you got to be clear with yourself about what it is you're looking for. And I didn't cover this in the video, but here it is now. I have a deal breaker list too. And here's the list. You can read just a couple of things that really, especially lately. I can't have anyone on my team that is low tech. They've got to be savvy with all the technology tools that are available in the modern sales world. And that includes all social sites too. Maybe you don't want to post what you're doing on Facebook and Instagram, that's great. But you need to know how to work those tools so you can follow your customers, follow the buyers, stay in touch with trends, follow the brands that you admire, that you compete with. So that's a really big thing. Selfish people who are just troublemakers, people who have emotional extremes, fly off the handle, or are really down and depressed. I take those things very seriously. I don't, and I'm not judging people. I just know that it won't work for me if people demonstrate these things. So I hope that is useful. You'll get a copy of this slide deck. Later today, I'm going to send an email that has links to both the recording of this webinar and also all the slides that you're about to see. Now, here's another thing that I feel pretty innovative on this. I haven't really seen other people do this. Maybe there are. Certainly not in the wine and spirits industry. I haven't seen it. But I don't like to waste time when I'm searching for talent or doing recruiting for a client. And I believe that modern tools can be used to really pre-screen and save a lot of time. First thing, nobody reads long ad copy. In a minute, I'm going to show you a side-by-side comparison of one of my ads versus a typical ad, a real ad that I took off winejobs.com. Here's the basic equation. You have a job. I need a job. I'm going to hit apply. So thinking that your job ad, putting all this detail in your job ad is going to somehow bring only the best people to the surface. That's just not going to happen. So you have to give people the opportunity to self-eliminate. The Marines do this really well. The few, the proud, the Marines. Don't bother showing up at the recruiting office. You probably wouldn't make it anyway. That you really want that. It's hard, and it's hard to do because if you've got an open sales role, you really want to fill it, and you want to fill it as soon as possible. But you got to have the discipline to do a great job of pre-screening. There's no way I'm going to sift through 1,000 resumes. No way. So how do I get it down to 50 or less? And of those 50, some really well-qualified ones. I also believe in casting a wide net. For wine jobs, I use winejobs.com, but I'll post that same ad on LinkedIn, the same ad on Indeed. There are certain parts of the hiring process where you shouldn't get cheap. So you got to cast a wide net and then use this ad to get people to self-eliminate. So let's take a look. On the left is a real ad that I copied from winejobs.com. It is a total of 800 words. And I went through here really carefully to make sure you couldn't tell who it was. But this is just, no one's going to read this. They're just going to hit apply. So you've wasted your time writing it, and you've wasted your time posting it. Actually, maybe not writing it, because you could give it to them later. Or when you get some really good quality candidates in the pipeline, you can always give this to them later so they get more detail about the job. But the job ad itself is no place for this. Here's a typical ad for me, an actual ad for me. I use this to hire a national sales manager, 168 words. And here's the stats. 1,060 people saw the ad, but less than 50 applied. That's about 5%. That's less than 5%. And of those 50, there were 3 amazing stars. Any one of the 3 would have been fantastic for this role. So this is the funnel. This is the self-elimination. This is an incredibly efficient and time-saving process. At the bottom here, I always have this. You can always tell one of my ads, even if it's a blind ad, because it always says this. Please include a cover letter with your resume that explains why you think you're the right person for this job. If you submit a cut and paste cover letter, you'll immediately be eliminated from contention. Now, you know what happens. People submit, they don't read. They don't even read that. But that's okay, because I've just created another tool that I can eliminate and screen people with, because I absolutely do put that cover letter into the shredder. So I'm going to get to oh yeah, I got to what to look for in a cover letter coming up. So just a few other tips for screening applicants. Let's start with the resume. I don't put a lot of stock in resumes, okay? Most people, that's like their single biggest determining factor of whether they want to talk to or look at a candidate. Everybody's got a resume. And if it's a sloppy one or misspelling or just not a lot of thought put into it, well, then your job is easy. Throw it in the shredder. But there are things you can't learn from a resume, and I have that list here. You can't learn if they're a hard worker from a resume. You can't learn if they're going to take initiative. You can't learn whether they're the type of person that always has an excuse for why something was late or didn't get done. You can't tell what kind of problem solver they are or how well they're going to get along with everyone on the team. So when you start stacking these things up, a resume is important. I want to see where they worked, and I'm going to use it to do reference checks, but I just don't put a lot of weight in it. I want to talk to these people. I want to poke at them. I want to research them. So I think that understanding the limitations of the role of a resume in the hiring process is important. Let me pause and see if we've got any questions coming in. Nope, that's okay. I'm going to press on. So what to look for in a cover letter. Now, so you might say, or others might say, oh, cover letters, that's old school stuff. Nobody does cover letters anymore. Well, you know what? I don't care. I'm the hiring manager. This is part of my screening process. If you want a job with me, you need to give me a cover letter. But this cover letter is a great opportunity for me to see some of your personality and to see if you really do want the job and why you think you'd be good for this job. So I learned from the cover letter, how well do they express themselves? How excited are they about the job? Do they really want the job? Do they have a sense of humor? One of my favorite cover letters, oh no, it was actually in a phone screening, which I'm going to talk about. I asked the guy, how did you come to get from New York City to Houston? That seems like an odd journey. And he said, I took an airplane. Well, I love that. That's my kind of sense of humor. I love that dry sense of humor. Here's some examples of real cover letters that are done just right. I will bring unrivaled passion and energy that will take your company to the next level. Even if it's not true, I still want to talk to this person. I love this one. It would be impossible for me to pass up an opportunity to meet you. I haven't met him, haven't talked to him, but I like that person already. So you get the idea. These cover letters should be very personal. It should, their personality should come through. I love this too. Hello, my name is so-and-so. And I have to say, I am just thrilled by the opportunity to be part of something as innovative as what you guys are doing. This is really the kind of stuff that I'm looking for. So I want to spend some time on this. I hope I'm not moving too fast. If you think I'm moving too fast, just throw something in the Q&A. Ben, slow down, take a breath. So this is my favorite tool of screening for talent. Long before I ever sit down and do a real formal interview, I want to do a 30-minute phone screening. It tells me a couple of things. One of the first things it tells me is how tech savvy they are. It's almost 2019. If you've never Skyped, okay, that's the problem. If you've never done a video call, if you've never participated in a video conference, if you don't know, how to upgrade your camera for 20 bucks or maybe get a better mic, if you don't know how to use the microphone and camera on your computer, this tells me that there could be other low-tech problems looming. But I want to get them talking. I want to see how they express themselves. Are they animated? Are they articulate? Do they use a lot of vocalized pauses and monotones? I want to get to know their personality. Now, I know the old adage, the person you interview is not the person who comes to work for you. And when you get them on the phone screening, they're going to put their best foot forward. But if the more you do this, the more skilled you get as an interviewer of getting them to open up and relax. Like if I see that someone's nervous, and sometimes that happens, I will say, are you nervous? There's no need to be nervous. And I make them feel comfortable because I can't get to the real personality if they're nervous. So there's probably a lot more that I could talk about on exactly what I do during the video call, but these are the main points. I want to know if they're a good listener. I will often ask multiple part questions, like 2-part questions, to see if they'll let me finish and answer both parts of the question. Like, here's a great way to respond to a 2-part question. Well, let me tackle the first part of your question first. Blah, 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 blah. And as to the second part of your, this kind of feedback shows me that they're listening. But the 2-part question is great. People who talk over the top of you, interrupt you, aren't really listening, can't wait to talk. This isn't going to work well on the job, and you probably know people like this. Do they have a personality? Are they funny? Are they interesting? Being interesting is a big part of the success as a sales rep. But this 30-minute screening is a great time saver, because if I don't like them on the 30-minute screening test, then there's no way I'm going to waste more time going through the rest of the process. Okay, we got a question. Jim. Hi, Jim. Do you like it when interviewee is taking notes during screening? Yeah, I don't have a problem with that. I'm a note taker. I guess that's kind of a personal choice. No, I don't mind that at all. That's not nearly as much of a clue to me as what they're going to be like if they want to take a few notes. I think that's a great question. So, oh yeah, I was saying that if I don't like them on a 30-minute call, that's it, I'm done. Thank you very much. We've decided to go in another direction. I don't have to waste any more time. I've had several experiences where the resume looked great, the cover letter looked great, and I get them on a call and they just don't have much personality, or they're just, kind of boring, and I just don't see them succeeding in a sales role. I'm not judging them. I wish them all the best. But a quick side note, as a sales leader, you have an incredible responsibility to hire A players, high performance people who get results. That's your responsibility to hire them. You can't bring them in and then later blame it on them. You're the hiring manager. So take these steps to screen out people. It's worth it. Plus, it's real time saving. I'm moving pretty fast, but I guess that's okay. You all are probably very busy. Checking references and other safeguards. There was a time when I didn't bother checking references. I had already fallen in love with the candidate and made up my mind, right? This is a horrible way to approach hiring. So I've learned over the years, check those references, talk to as many people as possible. My rule is minimum 3. Keep dialing until you get at least 3 people on the phone who know this person and can speak to them. And, yeah, I guess they could make up stuff or send you down the wrong trail, but I've never seen that happen. If somebody doesn't really like a candidate, so let's say I call a former employer, former boss, and I say, do you mind if I take 5 minutes to ask a few questions about so-and-so? And they're like, I'd rather not. Well, that's all I need to know. That speaks volumes right there about that person. And here's another thing, another reason to check 3 references. I'm sure there are people in my past that don't like me. I mean, that's just a fact. So you got to talk to lots of people to get a real picture. You can't just make one phone call. But generally, the stars that you hire, people will not only tell you lots about them, they won't shut up about them. They'll just go on and on. Oh, Jerry was fantastic. I would hire that guy in a minute. You're crazy if you don't hire him. That's what I'm looking for. People who are just really excited about the candidate. And boy, you just feel so much better when you've made at least 3 calls like that about your decision. Now, I check social sites, and I'll tell you what I check for. Hey, if you don't want to have a Facebook page or a Facebook page and post, that's fine. I get that. But you should be on Facebook, because you should be following all of your customers. You should be following the brands that you're selling to, the customers, the restaurants, the wine shops. You should be on there all the time. So if you're not doing that, that's a bit of a red flag for me. Oh, some questions. The problem with the questions is I lose my train of thought. Another question from Jim. What about private social media? Not everyone has a public site. But that's a great question. I mean, we live in the real world. There are 9 billion people on Facebook. It's not just for teenagers and selfie sticks and for taking pictures of your food. Yeah, you can do all those things, but it's a business tool for all the reasons I was just saying. So my Instagram account is not set to private. None of my stuff is private. I keep the private stuff private. So I really am turned off by that. I just don't think it's necessary. Now you could say, well, I have young daughters and I don't want, people creeping on my kids or, memorizing what my kids look like. I totally get that. Well, then be very careful who you're friends with. And we live in a dangerous world. And I promise you, if somebody wanted to hurt you or your family, they could do it with or without Facebook. So I don't really buy that essentially. Social media is a powerful and important business tool. Let's talk about LinkedIn, because LinkedIn isn't just for unemployed people or people looking for a job. LinkedIn is the single most powerful networking tool in business today. Your profile should be updated. Your history and information should be accurate. It's your chance to, it's your public business card. And one thing I really can't abide is when someone doesn't have a profile picture up. And you know why that typically is? They're embarrassed. They don't want to be, hey, I'm a very, you know, I don't want to be arrogant or egotistical or vain. I got news for you. Your picture isn't for your benefit. It's for my benefit, so I can make sure I got the right person. I wrote a blog post called Twitter for Boomers. You can find it on my website. But it really does a good job of explaining how to let down some of these safeguards, why you should be on social media, why it's an important business tool. Now, do you have to have a Twitter account? You don't have to. I have one. I hardly ever tweet, but boy, I look at it all the time because the people I'm following are important to me and I want to do business with them. And so that's part of my repertoire. To those who say, oh, well, I wish I had time to spend several hours a day on social media, I don't buy that for a second. I would like to think that I've been wildly successful in my business life. So if I can do it, you can do it. I just don't accept that excuse. Who do you know that they know? That is another important thing to have LinkedIn. If I find a candidate, I want to see who knows them that I know so I can talk to them and extend that list of references. And, you know, are they tech savvy? If they're not on the social media tools and they don't know how to use the proper use of hashtags, you know, it's a clue that the person's pretty savvy, and understanding how to tag people and use some of the basic elements of these tools. So we live in a wonderful age when we can check people out really, really thoroughly. And I'm doing it because it's available and I don't want to make a hiring mistake. So great questions. There's just a few things on checking references and other safeguards. Now let's talk about the offer. I'm skipping over the actual in-person live interview. If there's enough demand for this, I'd be happy to do another webinar just on that piece because it really is critical. But part of why I feel comfortable leaving it out is it's all these pre-screening things that really make the big difference. By the time I'm ready to sit down face-to-face with the person, they're already very high on my list. There's already a high likelihood that I'm going to take them seriously as a candidate. In fact, a lot of times I'll interview only 3 or 4 people that make it through my funnel, and I know I'm going to hire one of them. It comes down, at that point, it probably comes down to fit, just how comfortable I feel with that person. And you should learn to go with your gut. This takes a little practice. But one good rule of thumb that everyone can employ and take away from this call, start using later this afternoon. When in doubt, don't. When you're hiring, if there's any doubt at all about this person, do not hire them. That is your gut trying to tell you something might be wrong. So you have to learn to listen to that and you have to learn to trust it. Every time I've gone against my gut, I regretted it severely. And if you've ever had a salesperson on your team that's hard to get along with or is always making excuses or isn't, you know, just a troublemaker, it's so much harder to get rid of them than it is to not bring them in the first place. So listen to your gut. When in doubt, don't. And if you think back to some of the best hires you've ever made, you probably didn't have those doubts. You probably couldn't wait to move forward with them. So let's talk about the offer. This will keep you out of trouble, and there's a right way and a wrong way to do the offer, not a place to get lazy. And one of the reasons why I'm going into this is there's a saying that a good understanding makes good friends. I want to get clarity on as much detail as possible about this person's employment. I want to cover vacation days. I want them to know how they'll be reimbursed for their phone and internet charges, and are there any limitations there? I want them to know about the benefits package in detail. I want them to know about the bonus package, not just what it is, but when is it paid? How long do you have to be employed to get that bonus? When does it kick in? Just as much detail as possible. This will save you much aggravation down the road. Start date, the title, put everything in here. No detail is too small. Why? Because you want to get clarity that you don't have to try to clean up later. A few more negotiating tips and tricks. It's a wild west there when it comes to negotiating, and you never know what you're going to get when the candidate tries to negotiate. So you've got to be prepared ahead of time. Expect them to negotiate. Be prepared to negotiate. Know what your bottom line is. check with your HR department. You know, at Constellation, they made it easy. We had salaried bands, and you had to stay within that band for that particular role, and there was no way around it. So if you wanted to allow headroom to negotiate, you would make sure you were below that band before you started offering. Another good rule of thumb, which is not on here, but I don't know how valid this is anymore, but I've used it throughout my career. Somewhere around a 10% bump in their existing base salary is a really good starting place. Because anything less than that is just not even worth it. And as people advance in their career, you know, a 10% increase in your pay is a big increase. And it's kind of sad that for most people to accelerate their salary, they're going to have to move. It's really, really hard to get your salary ramped up over multiple years staying at the same company. Nothing against that. I know people spent 30 years at the same company. It's just really hard. So don't be put off by people who are, you know, changing jobs every 2 or 3 years. It's just part of the world we live in today. Know in advance where you can be flexible and where you can't. For example, title. If you have a small company, small family owned, not publicly traded, you can be flexible with things like titles. A VP title, you know, you don't want to hand these out like candy, but a VP title could be just to make a person feel incredibly valuable. And if it's within your grasp to do it, and you have a small team, you know, nothing's stopping you from using that title. The director, there's all, you know, as opposed to manager, there's all kinds of ways you can go with the title. Vacations, you know, there's so many people who are still so old school about vacations. I mean, we live in a world where people are working hard and playing hard, and doesn't always, especially in a sales role, it doesn't always fit into a neat 9 to 5, 5 day a week world. So being flexible about vacation, being flexible about how fast you can accrue your vacation time. Bigger the company, the harder it is to do this. I know you've got hiring policies, but just some things to think about. Working remotely. And let me tell you something, if you don't trust a person to work remotely, you probably shouldn't hire them. So don't let that be a deterrent. Start date, that's another very flexible thing. Some people need flexibility in their start date. That's an easy one. Like, I have this vacation planned, the European vacation planned with my family. I feel bad taking that trip, you know, 2 weeks into the job. Well, why don't you start when you get back or whatever? Just once you've done all this proper screening and you know this is a person you want on your team, what is it going to hurt to be flexible? They're not going to stop pursuing the offer. And another thing is the 6-month salary review. If you really can't agree and it's a deal breaker, they want this salary and you want to pay this, then commit to a 6-month review. Say, I'll tell you what, and I'll put this in writing. In 6 months' time, we will sit down, the two of us, and we'll review your salary situation. Because in 6 months, you're going to know whether that person is a keeper or not. And when you find a salesperson that's a keeper, you want to keep them. I think we could all agree to that. Okay, so we're coming sort of near the end. That's okay. A couple things, some of my favorite resources. Your HR team. If you work for a company that has an HR team, you need to avail yourself of the incredible depth of experience and expertise that these people have. Involve them in the process from the beginning. Show them what you're doing. Let them do some phone screening with the people. There's just so many reasons to involve your HR team in your process. Now, if you work for a company that doesn't have an HR person, you can outsource that. And my recommendation is Jamie Griffith. I love this guy. I'm a small company. I don't have an HR department. But from time to time, I have HR questions. In 2017, I had to terminate somebody, and I wanted to do it right, and I wanted to get advice. So Jamie's kind of my outsource guy. I go to him. He's at goodworkforce.com. I'll talk about DISC last. If you haven't read, if you're a sales leader, leading sales teams, and there's pressure on you to make your goals, you owe it to yourself to read Daniel Pink's book, To Sell Is Human. It's the most modern perspective about what a salesperson does that I know of. He also has a YouTube video that's, I think, maybe 18, 20 minutes long, called The Puzzle of Motivation, Daniel Pink. He's a fantastic speaker. This is a must read for all sales leaders and, of course, salespeople as well. But I love this book. It'll put a lot of things in perspective about what it takes to be successful in sales in the modern age. Now, there are a number of screening tools that you can use. My favorite is DISC, because at St. Michel, we always used DISC. And so for 12 years, I had this tool available to me, and I learned how to to use it to evaluate candidates. There are others. There's Myers-Briggs and probably others that you could name. I just happen to like this one. You can go to discprofile.com to read more about it, to find out how to, where to send candidates for an assessment, that sort of thing. So these are just a few resources that I hope are useful. Oh, we have a question. Well, hey, Diana. Diana says, I really like that you've recognized careers today are considered episodic. 2-year stints are the norm now, and hiring managers have to really sharpen their skills to find the stars are going to onboard fast and make an immediate impact. Thank you, Ben. Well, thank you, Diana. It's worth camping out on for just a minute. I believe that part of the reason why there's so many mediocre salespeople on teams all around our industry is because the sales managers don't know how to hire. They take the distributor's recommendation, or they take somebody, some friend of theirs, or whatever. I don't care who they are, how well you know them. You still have to go through this rigorous screening process. And try to be modern in your thinking. I really don't hold it against anyone. Like, some people are so scared to have a hole in their resume. What were you doing these 7 months? Well, I was traveling around the world trying to get my head on straight, figure out what I want to do. I'm like, that sounds awesome. I don't care if people have gaps in their resume. I'm going to find out one way or the other whether I want to hire this person. So there's no mysteries that I need solving there. Yeah, so just be wise and not too old-fashioned. Okay, so that's kind of the end. I want to show you a few resources that I have. If you are on this call, or you're listening to the recording later, and you aren't 100% sure that you have great chops at hiring talent, I would love to help you. And there's a couple ways that I can do that. First of all, I'm going to send you an email a little bit later this afternoon that has a link to the recording of this webinar and all the slides that I used at the webinar, which would be good for you to have, sharing with your colleagues, whatever. There are probably some people on your team or in your company that might want to see the video. Now, I do offer coaching. I offer 2 hours of my time. I'm looking over your shoulder, helping you with your hiring process. I'm not in a recruiting mode at this point. I'm just holding your hand, helping you with write your ad copy, helping you set up all these things to implement all the things that I just talked about. So for this week only, and because you are on the webinar, I'm taking $100 off. Use the coupon code WEBINAR. The email that I'm going to send you later has a link to how to purchase this. But for $400, it would save you $10,000 worth of time and aggravation from hiring the wrong person. If you're in the middle of a search, you need this. If you're about to start a search, it's almost January, so many people will be doing that. Money well spent. I will help you and coach you throughout your process. So watch for that email with the link. Oh, we got a question, I think. Maybe question? Yeah, hi, George. I have had to hire a salesperson that's bilingual. Any suggestions on making sure they're truly bilingual? Wow, that's a good one. I've never really come into that. I would certainly call Jamie and ask him how to handle that, because it's fraught with potential pitfalls. It's not enough to just make sure they know how to, make sure they know how to speak the language that we talk about, but you're traveling into some area that could get you into potential trouble with employment agencies. So get advice for that. Great question, George. And I don't know the answer, but I would encourage you to get some experts' advice. So watch for that email. Now, this is the last thing is recruiting. There's something wrong with the recruiting in the wine and spirits industry. And I have many friends who are recruiters. I've been recruited by people. I've used recruiters. But I have, since being on my own, I've discovered that most of the time that's needed to hire is just not necessary. And so why do you have to pay? Why do you have to pay so much? You used to have to pay a lot because it was a lot of work. You know how many phone calls you would have to make in the old days before social media and LinkedIn? You know how many people you had to network with and ask? It was a hard job. So they deserve that fee. But typically they'll charge 20 to 25% of the first year's salary. Now, for a $100,000 a year job, that's $20,000 to $25,000. For a $140,000 a year job, it's obviously much more because it's a percentage of the salary. And it takes a long time because they waste a lot of time trying to justify their high fee. And again, I apologize if I'm offending any recruiters, but it's just the world that we live in. You know, I charge a flat rate of $10,000 per head. I don't care what the role is, because it's going to take me the same amount of time. I'm going to use the same disciplined process. It's fast and efficient. All I ask is that I'm not going to compete with other recruiters. You either retain me or you don't, and that's fine. I want to show you. Also, not all recruiters have led high performance sales teams. So I just think that that's a unique distinction that helps me. I want to show you some of the recruiting I've done this year for clients. My last search that I just finished was a VP of National Sales for Fort Ross. His name is Mick Roberts. He used to work for Locations. Awesome guy, lives down in Houston. Just before that, I convinced Eric Beerbrier to leave Kendall Jackson and become the new director of National Accounts on Premise for Hahn. I hired a Southeast Regional Manager for Domaine Bousquet. I just finished a hiring spree earlier this fall for Shannon Ridge. I hired their VP of National Sales and 2 regional sales managers. So that's just an example of some of the recruiting success. So, hey, 37 minutes in, that's not too bad. I would love to open the floor for questions. And if you have to go, that's cool too. Watch for the email with the links to the recording and these other things. So I'll give it a minute to see if anyone has questions. And if you need to go, feel free. No other questions? Going once? Well, thank you. Thank you for giving me your time today. Thank you for sitting in. I would love to, if you know me, like George, Diana, Jim, I would love a quick email. Just give me your thoughts. I'm not looking for fake adoration. I want to know your real thoughts, whether you thought it was worthwhile, was it too fast or too slow? Any kind of information or feedback would be great. So that's it. I'm going to sign off. I'm going to stop recording. Thank you all very much. Have a great rest of your day.